This episode is brought to you by The Manor, a premier addiction treatment facility in the hills of Wisconsin's Kettle Moraine Forest. Their program offers a tailored approach to those struggling with addiction in a secluded setting with no more than 11 men and women. With highly personalized treatment focused on trauma, Dr. Chantal Thomas and her expert team offer an authentic experience, creating the kind of deep emotional change that's crucial for long-term recovery. If you or someone you love are struggling with addiction, call The Manor at 414-930-1930. You can learn more about The Manor by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting discoverthemanor.com.
Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
I am Hannah Uhler, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
If this is your first time here, thanks for checking it out. If not, thanks for coming back. I'm Tom Gentry, and this is The Path to Authenticity, episode 159 for January 18th, 2022. Features a conversation with one of my favorite people to talk to, really. I just am amazed with the relationships I've been able to develop with this podcast. It's been a blast. And Hannah Uhler is, one of the early guests that I had. She was in episode 33. I saw her online not long ago and thought, a lot has probably changed since the last time we did this. So I invited her back. And we had a great conversation. Again, she's just has great energy, really. Lots of superlatives that I could use about Hannah. But anyway, hope you enjoy it. Here you go. Hannah Uhler. Hannah, it's good to have you back.
So good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. So, you were one of the very first people who I didn't know, I think. I mean, you were episode 33. So I was still pretty new at this, at that point. And one of the things that was really cool about talking to you and a lot of the early guests is, I went into this without any expectations necessarily about how well it was going to go, and didn't really have an idea about how I was going to be able to connect with people this way. And it was just an awesome conversation. And I knew before we spoke that your story was just really great for what I'm trying to accomplish with this podcast, because you had this great corporate job in marketing and hated it and walked away to go do your own thing. And so that was November of 2019. So how far into it were you then?
Oh, man. So November 2019. How far was I into my business?
Yes.
Oh man, 3 months.
Wow.
I think it was 3 months. I started August, September. I hired day one. I hired a coach because I quit cold turkey from that position. I didn't set myself up. I've always been sort of a risk taker in the name of heart, in the name of desire, in the name of what was calling me. And I left that corporate position with no safety net. And so my move was, I'm going to hire somebody from day one to get in my corner and get this thing rolling. And it was the scariest and best decision that I made. So I was 3 months in, but just so energetic and alive and excited for what I was stepping into, because leading up to that moment, I mean, it had been years of wanting to make this move. It wasn't just something that I woke up and was like, you know what, I think I'm going to go for it. There's this process of you get the ping, you get the nudge, and then it keeps coming back, and then it keeps getting louder, and you can't ignore it. And I think I shared this part of my story when I was in my corporate position. It was a great job. If I was going to be in corporate marketing, it was one of the best positions I could have had. My supervisor was incredible. My coworkers were amazing. The projects were fun, but I just felt like I wasn't. I mean, I think one reason that we really connect is deep down, it's like I'm not being true to myself. Like there's this expression, there's this skill set, there's just something wanting to break free. And I knew as long as I was in that environment, like I was never going to really be able to explore what that was, not really understanding what that would look like. And there was a moment where I got offered an opportunity to a promotion. And it was just dread. The minute I got that opportunity and had that conversation with my boss, and that's how I knew. It's like, man, they're spending their time to really train me for this position when I know that I'm not going to be here. And just feeling that dread instead of excitement when I got offered that opportunity, that was my moment where I was like, you know what, I'm going for it. I can't ignore the call anymore. So yeah, I was 3 months in, and I think I was excited, and I was like, we're doing this. It was before the oh shit, what have I done really set in.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are 2.5 years later. And I built the company to 6 figures in a little over a year. And I never would have imagined that it would happen in that way.
Mm-hmm. So talk about what you do.
I'm me. I get paid to be me.
Isn't that the best?
Whoever asks that question depends on the answer that they're going to receive. And I think that this is the best place where I can just say that, I get paid to be me. But essentially, what makes up me, Hannah Uhler International, is a combination of my marketing background, traditional marketing practices, along with my spiritual awakening journey and embodiment. CEO embodiment is a part of my methodology. Magic, manifestation, all of the parts of me into helping other leaders, healers, creatives, thought leaders bring their unique magic online and build a business that is sustainable and that protects their energy, because that is the life force of their creations and of their message. And I joke that but very seriously, was able to grow my business to what I did, working 2 to 3 hours a day, because I really focused on listening to my natural rhythms of creation and being really precise and really strategic about how I showed up. And so that's I bring that skill set into working with the clients that I do.
Okay. I want to ask you about a couple things here. So when you say CEO embodiment, talk about what you mean.
So this is, if anyone in here has been in the spiritual space, embodiment is a really popular conversation. And essentially, to me, everyone has their own meaning. To me, this is about the being, the identity work, the self-concept that is driving your actions. So if we are operating from, I'm not enough, so I'm going to build this business so I can feel enough, or I'm going to market this offer that I don't really want to market, but I know it's going to be profitable, then are we really embodying and being from the truth of who we are? And I would say that there would be a gap in embodiment there. And in that, you're going to have to hustle a little bit more. You're going to have to try a little bit harder. There's going to be more convincing and more energy that goes into getting clients because there's that gap. And so in CEO embodiment, this is, who in you knowing who you are and the worthiness and the value of what you have to bring, what actions would you be taking from that space? So really, it's going to be more so about doing less to create more. It's going to be more about boundaries. It's going to be more about, are you pricing for the true value of your gifts? How are you showing up as the CEO and the leader and the manager and the guide of your business, or outsourcing and asking everybody else what to do, or outsourcing your power to a coach, or outsourcing to just doing all the trainings and all the courses without really taking ownership of the value you have to bring forward. So we work on, there's practices that I help my clients to really just get into their bodies and to really feel where they're struggling to step into that. And it's really effective. It's really precise. You get really clear on what you really want out of your life and your business when you work from the body first. So this is really the core of the work that I do.
And you talked about your natural rhythms of creation. Talk about that. What do you mean? I mean, I think I know what you mean, but I want to hear what you mean.
Yeah. So this really is the counter argument to the hustle culture, which says, work, put in the hours and it's going to pay off. And when you're tired, keep going. And if you're not feeling the momentum, go watch that motivational video and get the motivation and push through. And this is why burnout is so common among entrepreneurs, because we are working when our body is saying rest, and we are ignoring when our body is saying, I don't feel safe here. So I'm going to create, I'm going to overcompensate, I'm going to overdeliver, I'm going to overgive. And we're ignoring the cues of what our creativity is actually saying. And in that, it's really easy to create things that aren't fully authentic, to create things based on what you think you should be saying and doing, to build a business. I mean, you can build a business easily from this space, but I've had conversations with so many clients who have come to me and they're like, I don't know what the heck I just created, but I lost myself along the way. Like this doesn't even feel like me anymore. It's when we're ignoring those subtle cues of our natural creative rhythms. Because I believe that every single person has, every entrepreneur who's online, who's using social media to get their message out into the world, has a deep well of wisdom and magnetic content that's if they share from a place of just getting really still and creating spaciousness, they'll receive the things that people need to hear from them. But we're overriding those systems, and we're burning out, and we're losing our authenticity along the way.
It's interesting. One of the things I've kind of noticed lately, and just kind of meandering on Instagram by hashtags, topics that I'm interested in. And usually with me, it's about manhood or masculinity or something like that. There are a lot of people out there who are producing content from a place of opposition or anger, or, they want to argue and might have a shit ton of followers, right? And people commenting and all that stuff. But it really isn't anything new that they're creating. It's like, rather than having an idea, they're refuting someone else's idea. And a lot of times it's all just like bullshit. It's not even real. It's like they're creating some kind of false argument. And it's not from the heart.
Nope. And you can feel it. And you can feel it, but there, it's effective, and it gets attention, and it gets engagement, and it gets the conversation going. But it almost speaks to like what I call the old paradigm of like marketing and bro marketing is speak to the pain points and be really polarizing and stand up for what you have to say. It's like this idea that we have to stand on top of others to be seen, or that our value is dependent on what other people are doing in the space. And if we're going to build community or get the attention and get the visibility, then we have to explain why we're better and why our opinion is the best, and what we see wrong. People, you see so many people just like, I call them the integrity police. They're like, this is what's in integrity, and this is what we should be doing, and and this is wrong, and this is right. And it's like, who appointed you as the president of what is right and what is wrong? And I know exactly what you mean, because I see it all the time, especially in the coaching space. Like, here's why my methods are better than someone else's. And when I see that, I don't know, I keep scrolling. It turns me off. It doesn't activate me. And I see that as just an opportunity to deepen into what's really true for that person. Like, where are you ignoring what's actually true for you without it needing to stand on top of somebody else for you to get seen?
Well, and it's the scarcity thing too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I need to take because there's not enough, so I need to get mine. And when the truth is, like, you do see this a lot with coaches, where they tell you all the reasons why their approach is the right way and everyone else's is bullshit. And right? I mean, you see it a lot. Like, well, they're not really a coach. I'm really a coach. A coach should do this, or a coach should do that. And it's like, I don't know if somebody pays me to help them, like, help build them up, and it actually helps them, then isn't that the point, right? And there's room for all of us to, there's room for everything, right?
Well, and you hear all the time, there's actually too much room at the top. However, whatever the top means to you, but there's so much room at the top because everyone's fighting with each other at the bottom. And you also hear, if you don't see successful people knocking down people who are less successful than them.
Right, they're helping.
So Right. So if you're truly connected to your service, what part of you thinks that that's not enough? And there's no shame and there's no judgment here, because I'm sure there have been places in my own expression and where I've been insinuating that my way is better without even realizing it. We're all human, and it's going to come through as we're just finding our way and finding our potency and finding our truth. But I think the important part is just recognizing when you're doing that and that it's not necessary. And not only is it not necessary, it's an opportunity to really deepen into like what you uniquely have to give. Because I think that's what we're craving. I think we're just tired, after the past 2 years. It's like, okay, but who's got the solution? Where are the solutions now rather than fighting with each other?
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of very oppositional atmosphere we find ourselves in this culture right now. Definitely. So you do group coaching, you do individual coaching. Who's the ideal person for you to help? Who's the person who should come to Hannah?
I have opportunities at every stage of the journey. So one-on-one work is my favorite. I love to go really deep with people. I love the transformational work. I'm not sure if you're into human design at all, but I am a reflector. And as a reflector, it's just really powerful for me to mirror back someone's power and energy when I can have that space to create intimacy. So that's like the highest tier. I know what I'm doing. I'm confident in the value I have to give, and I'm ready to really create a movement around this. I'm ready to scale my business. I'm ready to focus on my zone of genius, to really clarify my message in a really big way. So that's a high level investment. And then I have programs. I have some just like recorded courses for people in creating their first offers and getting clear on who they really want to be serving and how to position themselves without putting themselves in a box. I have programs that are just focused on awakening your expression, which is really just not so much business and strategy, but a lot of healing, a lot of empowerment in those containers. So I got it all for every stage of the journey. But that one-on-one work, and I actually am going to be launching a mastermind in 2022, that high level work where it's leaders. There's no hierarchy. It's other people who have something very unique to give, coming together and creating something really beautiful together. Rather than I have all the answers and I'm going to coach you to do what I do and build your business like I build. It's what can we build together when we come together and with a similar vision. That's really going to be the focus for 2022 for the business.
So now the spiritual work that you've done on yourself, like how did you end up doing this stuff? How did you land on this? How did it begin?
Oh man. Where do I want to start that journey or that story? I was always really shy. Not shy, but I was shy. Really afraid to, like in school, just really anxious, not a big people person, didn't like to socialize, didn't love to go to parties, just felt like I was really just restricted in my expression and who I wanted to be, and just like this debilitating lack of like confidence and insecurity that I just eventually got tired with. And I would say in college, it wasn't until college where I really started to explore just fitness and health and feeling better in my body and really focusing on myself. that was led into, okay, wow, like my body's feeling better. I'm loving my body. I'm loving who I am. What's here for me beyond just the physical? And I've always been just really interested in the esoteric concepts, even as a kid. And I would say, my awakening journey really happened when I decided to travel for a year after college. I was starting to awaken and like really question my reality. And I grew up in a very conservative Christian family where I was taught not to question, and I got really tired of not questioning. And so when I graduated college and everyone was like, what's the job? What's the job? What's the career path? Where are you going? That was my moment of, I'm not getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not listening to what I've been told to do. I'm going to start questioning my reality. I'm going to start questioning my world. And I decided to travel. And it was in that year that I faced every part of myself and anxieties and fears and meeting people that I didn't even speak the same language of, and finding just this deep sense of peace in myself, and knowing that I could trust myself and I could trust my decisions. And from there, it was like, man, if I can feel this good after feeling so restricted for so long, like what else is here that I haven't been exploring? And I would say my second like really big awakening was when I started my business. I was like, oh man. All right, well now we're really facing the deepest wounds of rejection and the deepest wounds of where I don't feel worthy. And that has just continued to unfold for me. And I've worked with mentors, I've gone on retreats to really understand how is it that my emotional well-being, the beliefs that I have about myself are creating my reality. And through years of just shifting beliefs and understanding these concepts and witnessing like magic happen and unfold before my eyes, I was hooked. I will forever be a teacher of spirituality as it relates to business and expression.
So I have a morning practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Journal, a little bit of yoga, some prayer, usually some reading, just getting centered. What's your morning practice look like?
I love that you asked that, because I was just having a conversation with a client about morning practices. I don't have a morning practice. And that's one of my ways of really honoring my creative rhythms. I was feeling like I got to a point where I felt like it was forced for me. It was like, okay, let's sit down and let's get prepared for the day and let's get aligned. And I was realizing that I was starting to create this belief that if I didn't sit and this is just my personal experience, this is me honoring my creative rhythm. I was starting to create this correlation that if I didn't have a morning practice, like my day was not going to go as well, or I wasn't going to be as aligned. And I didn't like that. I really wanted to trust the unfolding of the day. So right now, I'd say my morning practice is to wake up, I close my eyes, and I just kind of put my hands on my body, on my chest, and I feel into what is it that, do I want to spend some time in breath work? Do I want to spend time in meditation, or do I want to get right at it? And I'm just learning to listen and trust the cues of what my body is asking me to do in that moment. So I'd say right now I don't have one, and that may change. I may get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready for, I'm desiring more of that masculine structure. I'm going to do the morning routine.
So what was the answer this morning that you got?
I didn't want to do a morning routine this morning. I just got up and I'm like, I am flooding with inspiration. I'm going to get right into work. And then I hit the gym about an hour into work. I'm like, okay, what do I want to do next? I'm like, I think I want to sit down and be present with some of my clients on Boxer. Okay, cool. I'm going to do that. And I've really learned to cultivate this deep trust with my body and with the unfolding of the day, which has just been an absolute game changer for my creative process. Because when I need to write a post, it's never, okay, I'm going to sit down and write a post. It's, I have this whole library of inspiration that has flooded through me when I'm at the gym or I'm doing something random, because I'm just trusting the flow of life. So that's the day to day. And that's, I really teach my clients to really lean into and to trust that. I think the fear is, well, I'm not going to get anything done. Well, if you're not getting anything done, then you're not really listening to your body. Because your body wants to create.
Well, yeah. And I think, the way we're acculturated is it's supposed to be 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And if you deviate from that, then something's wrong with you.
Mm.
And that's something that I've been, just detaching from over the last few years, and it's really not true. It's not. And all of that kind of structure was created to benefit someone who's not me, right? Right. And I've tried to think of it like, if I was never taught any of this stuff, and I'm not there yet, it's still a process, but if I was never taught any of this stuff and I just listened to my body, like, what time would I go to bed at night? And when would I wake up in the morning? And when would I work? If I didn't grow up in this world where you're supposed to work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., when am I at my best? When would I work? And just have really tried to tune into that. And in terms of like the structure of my morning practice, I have certain things I do because they feel right. And the other thing about it is that I try not to shame myself if I deviate from it, to just give myself the latitude to, okay, well, if for whatever reason, whether it's time or what I'm feeling or whatever, journaling isn't what I want to do right now, then okay, but the routine that I've created is what feels best. But I've agonized. At one point I was journaling every single day, and I did it for like 5 years straight without missing a day. And I put a lot of pressure on myself around it. And when I look back, I've kept it all. When I look back at it, there's not a whole lot that I can glean from it and use at this point. It's in a way it's historical. Like I can go back and remember what happened on a certain day, or, like a while back, I was trying to think of a name of someone I met, and, I could go back because I knew approximately when it was and had his business card stapled in my journal, But now, as I'm not putting pressure on myself, but I'm just feeling into it a little bit more, now there's a ton of stuff that I'm tapping into things and, producing more meaningful writing because I'm not using that energy to pressure myself to force it, to force it when it's not there, because if I don't do it this way, that's not okay, or whatever the message is, right? Like if I don't write this many pages Or if I don't do it every single day, then I'm breaking the commitment and that's bad or whatever, but, yeah, just giving myself a little bit of grace with it has gone such a long way in terms of the quality of the work,
Yes, and pressure. Pressure is a key word there. Like, that's a really powerful question to ask yourself is like, where am I putting pressure on myself right now? Because that's the key ingredient in burnout is
Mm.
is pressure. And I think it's really powerful. Obviously it's powerful that you devoted to that practice. And there's medicine in that, and saying, you know what, no matter how I feel, I'm going to devote to this thing. There's that served a very specific purpose. And that's what was needed at the time. And I think that when we're developing new habits, that's really important to say, I'm going to devote to this every single day, even if it's uncomfortable. But once it's kind of a thing and you've gotten the juice out of it and you've gotten the medicine from it, like, you can trust yourself to really flow with creation. And you also mentioned, oh gosh, I'm losing it right now. What did you mention? Okay, it'll come back to me.
I feel like I mentioned a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned, the power of following what feels good. Now, that is also another one of those like really common conversations that you see. Follow what feels good, do what feels good. And I think that there can also be like attunements and how that actually shows up in your life. Because if we're always, my question before I move on, my question would be to you is, do you find that you still create what you set out to create when you follow what feels good? Does it happen for you?
I think I probably only create what I set out to create when I follow what feels good, because that's kind of what, to me, creation is. It's like a channel. I'm channeling something, right?
Yes.
And feeling is how I tune into it. For me.
And are you consistently like expanding your comfort zone in that process, or occasionally?
I'm glad we're talking about it because I need to give it thought. You know what I mean?
I'm not trying to coach
no,
you.
No, do it. I'll take it. I mean, come on. No, it's interesting. I think for me, I used to cover high school basketball for a couple newspapers. That was part of what I did. And the first time, like, an editor took me out and showed me how to keep stats and went through his process with me. He said, if you have an idea, write it down, because if you don't, you'll forget it. That needs to be your first rule. And I do that. And I get mad at myself when like, maybe I'll be getting ready in the morning, or I'll be in the middle of something and I won't have my phone close by, or I'll be multitasking before I record the idea, and then I'll lose it. I mean, now I've gotten to the point where I trust that it'll come back, but it's kind of like that, especially with writing. It's almost like something captures me and I have to go with it. I have to go with it because it's here and it needs to come out now. I feel it and I need to see it through and just be done when it's done, And what I'm trying to do is to create more space in my life so I don't have other distractions that are keeping me from being captured in that way. You know what I mean? trying to create more opportunities to be present for that and to just go with it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So I would refer to that as like the muse, is what I call it. Like, the muse, just listening to the muse and building that intimacy with the muse, and how that relates to doing what feels good is there is nothing quite as beautiful and as pleasurable and as just fulfilling as being that vessel for the muse and just witnessing these ideas come to life and witnessing it's like something is moving through you, as you mentioned. And often we don't follow the muse fully to completion because not only does it feel good, but it is more often than not expanding us out of our comfort zone, asking us to create things we've never created before, asking us to speak on things we've never spoken on before. Because the muse wants to expand, it wants to experience, it wants to get to know the inner workings of you and life and your expression and your genius. And so when we get caught up in this, I'm going to do what feels good, a lot of times it can be at the detriment of the muse, because what feels good is also what is uncomfortable, which is the beautiful paradox of that. And when you can lean into, does it really feel good for me to take space today? Or is what would feel good to let this muse work through me and create this thing that's a little edgy for me or a little expansive for me? And that's where you really start to see like, oh, wow, like this is the message that I'm here to bring. Oh, wow, like these are the skills that are like just naturally a part of who I am as a person. That's when they come through. So many people are like, what's my thing? What's my thing? What am I good at? What's my purpose? It's in saying yes to that expansion and the feel good of growth rather than staying where you are, which I think is a really important distinction in that conversation.
Well, and I think, what does feel good mean to you too is a relevant part of this, because good as in valuable, as in meaningful, as in fulfilling, there's that feeling good. And that to me is what that means, like being present for that energy or whatever, the flow, as you call it. The fulfillment of that feels good. But I might be in tears the whole time it's happening. And to me, that's what makes it, that's why I feel like emotions and being clear emotionally is really, really important. Because if we are and we're not resisting it, then it's like an energy source, right? Where if we're resisting it, we're just fucked up. We're just confused, right? We don't know what's going on.
Yep.
We're just lost.
You're creatively congested. It just feels like you're going to blow the top. It's just like so much pressure. Yeah, I think that's where the conversation around just spirituality and healing is so important. And being an entrepreneur, it doesn't even matter if you're in a super creative space. Like the emotional intelligence and the just prioritizing your emotional health will make your life so much easier, because you can then become a clearer channel for what wants to move through. And our systems of 9 to 5 do not whatsoever support feeling your feelings, so you can clear your creative channel and work when you want to work and show up when you want to show up and just do what feels good. Like that is the complete opposite of the workforce. And I think that's why so many so many people are leaving it.
Yeah. The COVID work from home thing has opened a lot of people's eyes about quality of life.
Oh, yeah.
Because, with this podcast, I kind of went through a similar, not as dramatic process as you did leaving your job. Mine, it was a slow evolution to, okay, like it's time to make a job change. And my job change this time is I'm not getting another job. Right. But I feel so much better. I'm so much happier than I was before. When before I was really like succumbing to fear and being consumed by anxiety of, if I don't check all the boxes and do things the way I'm supposed to do them, then I'm going to be bad or not good enough or fail or whatever it is. But when I gave myself permission to just do what I want and trusted that that'll work, like I'll figure it out. I mean, it hasn't been easy, but it's been a hell. I mean, I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And now I'm at a point where if there is a job situation that comes up, it's like, okay, I'll do it if I can do this, this, and that. And I'm not doing this, or this. And if you have a problem with that, like, I'm not your guy, right? Where the old me would have been, oh, what do they want? And I'm going to have to, just kind of leaving it in their, it was essentially taking on a victim role in it. I have to do what they offer me or whatever. I have to take what's available rather than describing exactly what I want and telling them to take it or leave it. Right?
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge difference.
I remember on our first conversation, we talked about how we both have had the experience of getting jobs pretty easily. Just like, oh, that's what you need me to do? No problem. I can check that box. I can do that. I can do that. I can mold myself to fit this box for you. And I can show up and I can be that. And, to me, that was embodiment before I even realized what embodiment really was. Like, you need me to embody that role? No problem. The rest will come.
Right.
And you do that so many times that you're like, wait.
Well, the problem is they're all roles somebody else is creating for us rather than us creating it for ourselves.
Boom. Yes. Spot on. And once you realize that you are the author, you are the creator, your boundaries and your standards, they raise pretty significantly. And you start making the rules. And I think ultimately I've been reading into the trends of what's happening, just wanting to know like what's happening in the corporate space and where these companies are going. And with the rising of just like online business and creators and personal branding, companies are starting to create these roles that allow the individual to define what that is based on the skill set that they've already developed, based on the brand that they've already developed for themselves. We're starting to see more of companies like evolve and innovate to meet this technological social media industry where it is. Because if you don't do that, your marketing, like it's really hard to get marketing professionals to commit to an agency or a corporation because they're like, why wouldn't I just go? If I know how to build a brand and I have marketing, why wouldn't I do that myself? But if you allow these individuals to create their own roles, like that's where you're going to see higher employee, just the lifespan of the actual employee under the company. So the world is having to adapt to the fact that we are realizing on a, bigger perspective here that we are the creators of our individual experience. We are the co-creators of, what's happening around us. And I think the world, whether it realizes it or not, is kind of evolving to meet us there. I call it the gift economy. We're moving into the gift economy.
Why the gift economy?
So many of us are wanting to know the deeper why.
So gift as in what are my gifts, you mean?
Right. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why? What am I good at? What is my purpose? What can I fully bring forward? So we can define, like, here's my gift, here's my skill set. How can the companies, how can the organizations meet me here? So it's more gift focused rather than like profit focused and the organization at the forefront, but more so the individual gifts. Isn't it wild what happens when we realize our inherent worth and value?
Yeah. You talked about how you got the degree and then there was the expectation, okay, now what about the job? What kind of job are you going to get? Where are you going? Blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I'm not, right? What's that been like? Because like for me, I think about this sometimes, like we're both Hoosiers, right? I mean, we come from that Midwestern work ethic where, man, you don't miss a shift or right. I mean, it's like pretty intense. And I try to do things the way you're talking about. Like if I can get away with just working a couple hours a day, but the production is just enough compared to if I was forcing myself to work 8. And I think that's part of being committed spiritually to like having this sort of life and really being all in, betting on yourself to me is kind of what it is. So what's that been like for you? What kind of response have you had from the people who love you? How have they experienced all this?
Oh, well, it's been a journey, of course. I remember when I told my parents that I was moving to New Zealand instead of getting a job, and they laughed. Like, no, you're not. Like, wait a second. Yes, I am. It was like not even in their like realm of possibility that would even be an option. And so when I made it happen and I did it, there was so much, like I've received, my family, they love me. Like, of course they love me. They want what's best for me. So it's been a lot of fear that's been projected onto me. What's going to happen? Like, what if somebody takes you, or like, what if you run out of money, or what if? It's this, growing up in the Midwest, it's the bubble of what you don't question it, you just do it, you show up. It's honorable to put in the work, to clock in and clock out. And so it's almost like an insult to that way of being, to assume that you can just decide you want to do something and do it. And the barrier to that is fear, just like debilitating fear that I got projected onto me from my family. And through my journey of continuing to, I had to process that fear myself. It's not just, oh, I'm going to ignore that, I'll be fine. Like, what lives in them also lives within me. And so it's been a gift for me to process the reasons and the ways that I have just kept myself small and ignored what I really wanted, and ignored the questioning when I wanted to know more, and to really face the fear behind, I had the fear of God, the fear of hell that was placed on me. I mean, I was afraid to break out of that way of being. And so it was a gift for me to be able to process that while putting my foot down and saying, like, I'm living for me now. And in that, just through them, my family witnessing me take that first step, it's opened their eyes. Like, honestly, my parents have really changed in the past 5 or 6 years through witnessing me follow my own path. And they came to New Zealand. They had never left the country before. They came and met me in New Zealand for a week, and I just like the look on their face of like, whoa, there's this whole world out here. And not only is she safe, but she's thriving and she's happy. And like, okay, I can start to wrap my head around this. And so by the time I quit my corporate marketing job, my dad, I was honestly shocked. I called him and I was prepared for just the fear to be projected onto me. And because I had continued to follow my path and he could see how happy I was, he was like, I trust you.
Wow.
I'm excited for you. Go for it. So I know that, like, for a lot of my clients, they've come from similar backgrounds, and there's that fear. What is my family going to think? Like, I don't want to disrespect my values and what what I grew up, the environment I grew up in. And I'm feeling this call in you following your heart. Your family will meet you there. And if they don't, then there's not much you can do about that. But I fully believe there are people, family members, who are called to really break the mold, and they are the way showers for the rest of their family. And if you can take on that leadership role, you will take a part in healing some really deep ancestral wounding.
I like that you call it a leadership role, because it really is. I mean, it's the essence of leadership. Like, no, I'm going to do this. Like, right, I'm not going to do that because you say I should. I'm going to do this. Like, and and it's awesome to hear that your family have sort of met you there. And to me, sort of the flip side of that sort of response that you get, or that I've gotten a little bit here and there. Oh, a podcast, like whatever, like, what's podcast? But there are more and more people who see what I have done and are inspired to do what they want to do, because they've watched me do it and they've seen it work. And like this friend of mine who we launched his podcast yesterday, he watched me do it and thought, if Tom can do that, I can do this. And he asked me to help him. And it's been so satisfying because he's pretty pragmatic. He's good at what he does. He's a therapist. He's great at it. But he's also had this creative force inside of him that's been dying to come out. And I'm watching it. I'm watching it come out and coaxing it out more and more. And he just becomes more and more happy. What's better than that? I mean, that's got to be a lot like what you experience with your clients, right?
Oh, absolutely. When it's just this feeling of like coming home, it's like, oh, wow. Like, I always knew this was within me. I always knew there was something bigger calling me forward. And this is why mentorship and coaching, I think, is so big right now. When you witness somebody who's created what you desire to create, and who's come from a similar background as you, it just completely shatters an old paradigm of what you thought was possible, and allows you to really see what happens when you just take that first step. I think is the most important. Like, just take that first step without needing to have it all figured out, because that's a coping mechanism in itself. Like, I'm not moving because I don't have the clarity. I'm not moving because I don't know how. I don't know if I'm going to fail, if I'm going to succeed. And who you become and the clarity that comes in and the confidence that lands when you just take that next step and you surround yourself with other people who are doing that or have already taken those steps, you start to feel limitlessness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can literally create anything, which is really powerful. So yeah, it's one of the greatest gifts of being a coach is holding the space for someone to take that next step and then realize that they've always had everything that they needed to really bring the vision forward. It's really rewarding.
Yeah. For me, it's been, there are things that I have always known I was capable of doing, but like a fear that I wouldn't. Not even necessarily that I would fail, but that I wouldn't follow through or just that it would never happen or never could happen. Just that grief of unmet potential, right? And what's different is, especially like going into this year, there's certain things that I've gone from knowing I'm capable to knowing I will. And that's a powerful feeling. For doubt to have been removed and to be at a point where it doesn't matter what anybody else says, just doesn't even register. Like it's just gonna happen. And that's what makes it happen, right? Like that belief brings it into being.
Ooh, that's what I would call a powerful code right there.
A powerful code, huh?
That is a code for creation right there. When you realize that the state of being that you exist in, that you're creating from, that has no doubt, without needing the how, without having the clarity, has no doubt, that's when you're actually that an energetic match to receiving the things and to receiving the next step. If you have doubt, like, that's fine. That's cool. That's amazing. That's part of the process. Follow that doubt, feel to the depth of that doubt and what you fear, get to the root of it, and then pull it up from the root so you can continue moving closer to that space of just like freedom. It's so liberating to feel that. I don't need to know how. I don't need to know when. I just know.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really powerful space. That's a sign of, I think, mastery with the muse and in following that pull. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that feeling of, like, for me, it wasn't just like, I'm just going to choose this path. Like, it just feels fun. Let's choose to run a business. Let's choose to face all my fears. Let's choose. It was almost as if I had no choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night without following this call. I'm not sure if you saw the movie Dune.
No, I didn't see it.
Highly recommend. There's really great writing. And there was, oh no, I'm not going to be able to remember it word for word. There was a line about leadership that really stuck with me. And it was basically saying that leadership is not something you choose. It's not something you choose. It's when you finally decide to answer the call or when you can't ignore the call any longer, that things really start to happen. And I think that's part of the hero's journey as well. Of you answer the call, and then the other side of that is a power and a limitlessness and a joy and a level of peace and a level of surrender that you're living life to the fullest, and you're understanding what it means to live with trust of the creative potential that is life. Like, it's deep, but
it is, but it's a hell of a lot better than being stuck in the fear.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fear is paralyzing. And, what you're describing about how, if you didn't do this, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. In some ways, maybe that's the gift, because there are a lot of people who would be able to settle for far less than what they want and be able to rest easy. Like for me, I realized all those times I had trouble getting out of bed in the morning to go to work wasn't because I was lazy. It was because it wasn't what was right for me, right? My body, my emotions, it was like I was fighting myself because it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I mean, and maybe part of what I was supposed to be doing was going through that and having that experience so I can look back now and realize that's what it was. But, now I can tell people, no, the reason why you're depressed, the reason why you don't want to get out of bed is because you're on the wrong track. Like, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. If you're doing what you were supposed to be doing, you'd be leaping out of bed in the morning. Right?
People think that's a myth.
No way, man.
You gotta face reality. You gotta be realistic.
That's what makes it work, right? That is a total crock of shit. I posted something a while back about you are not supposed to hate your job. Like, we have this idea in our culture that that's what makes it a job. And the dream is the fact that you're still talking about the dreams, like, oh, you need to grow up. Well, that's what you need to do. You need to grow up. You need to give up on yourself, because that's what adults do, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is. And it's just a recipe for misery. Who wants to live like that?
Oh, it truly is. And I love what you said just about desire and the gift of just having that desire. I wrote something the other day around desire and how desire is it's an aligned desire. It's meant to be realized when the desire itself fulfills you. So when you're fulfilled knowing that you even having that desire is the gift, that's how you know your world is about to transform. That's how you know that is a signpost for you. That's how you know that's where you're going. Because I think we totally underestimate the power of even realizing what we want.
Yeah. Well, and owning it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I don't know, I had this client. I love this story where I'd only seen him a few times. He didn't have a lot of money, and a therapist referred him to me, like, as a favor to see this guy. And I loved him right away, and I related to him a lot. Like, he had a decent job, but it wasn't what he wanted to be doing. And what he wanted to do was go out west and be like a park ranger, conservationist, Utah or somewhere. But he's got this job and he's got benefits. And my dad says, well, how am I ever going to do this? And how am I ever going to do that? And I'm like, dude, it's what you want. Like, God gave you that. God gave you that. And it was just silent for, a couple minutes. And I thought, oh shit. I look, he's covering his face like he's crying. What did I say? I'm like, you okay? What's going on? And he just said, I just never thought about that before. It's beautiful. I never even thought about it that way. And you know what he did? He went and got a second job at Domino's. And I never saw him again. And he's in freaking Utah. He went and did it. He just went and did it.
Wow. That's incredible.
It is. It is. But what we want is really important. It's like part of who we are, I think. I mean, it's part of how we know who we are.
We're afraid of our desires. We're afraid of our desires because if we want something so deeply, but we know we're not going to go after it, the despair and the frustration and the fear that builds, or the contentment for the desire itself, we fear that. You know, if I want something too bad, or if I really explore what my soul really wants, then we fear who we have to become to get that. We fear what that means for us. I mean, we fear and desire are one and the same, but it's fear is like the initiation into your actual desire. But it's when you start because when we start to follow our desires, like, okay, I'm gonna, you know what, my desire, for example, just my desire of starting to just travel. I want to travel instead of get a real job. Okay, cool. The next desire was like, well, not only do I not want to get a real job, I want to start a business. Okay, cool. Well, not only do I want to start a business, but I want it to be this way, and I want to talk about these things. Okay, cool. Now I'm over here talking about soul purpose and magic, and it's when you start to follow the thread of what you really want, you find that you have even more desires. But the beauty of that is that you learn who you really are. And I think that desire truly is the thread to soul purpose. So you can fear it, or you can follow the most immediate desire. You can follow that next step and let it transform you into who you really are, into who you really freaking are.
The following the thread. I love that. It's true. It's true. You know, a lot of times with younger guys, I work with a lot of younger guys who, you know, they're transitioning into manhood. They don't know what they want. I didn't know what I wanted when I was 18, 20, you know. I knew what I didn't, you know, and I'll say things like, well, you know, if you don't know what you want to do, find your people, you know, do something you know you love, because then you'll find your people. I mean, and then they'll lead you to where you're supposed to be, because you'll be with the right people. And to me, that's a big part of it too, is finding the right people, which is a great segue into wrapping this up, because you're definitely the right people. For me anyway. I mean, like, I could just go on and on having conversations like this. This is why I did this. You know, I want people to be able to be happy with their lives. We deserve to be happy and to do what we want. Right?
Absolutely. And I enjoy the authenticity and the natural flow of these conversations, because it creates the space for just that genuine, here's who I am, here's what I have to offer, here's what I have to say, without the labels and the titles and the pushing the accomplishments. And it's just such a nourishing space to be in. And the work that you're doing is so powerful, because I think that when we can truly see who we are, you fall in love with life in a whole new way. And it's just, it's such a joy to be connected to you. And it's just really beautiful that we're reconnecting after all of this time, and all of the growth, and all of the ways that we have both stepped more fully into leading our own visions and desires. And it's a beautiful community. So thank you for having me here.
Okay. So one thing that's different since the last time we did this is there's one question I always ask at the end, and it's this. So if there was a time in your life when the younger Hannah needed word of support, advice, encouragement, whatever, when did she need it the most? And what would you go back and say to her?
Oh, I would tell her that her fears, her anxieties are not hers to hold. They do not hold the truth of who she is, and that she can trust herself, she can trust in God, and that it's about to get really, really good.
I love that. That's perfect. It's about to get really, really good. Because it's true. This is when it starts, right? When you just follow the thread.
Yes. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Well, I'm glad I followed the thread to you.
As am I. As am I.
We got to set up this 20 questions thing. We got to get you back on here to do that. Are you up for that sometime soon?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
All right, there you go. Another episode in the books. Thanks for listening. You can learn more about the show and this episode's guest at thepathtooauthenticity.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Every little bit helps. I want to thank the band Punk Rock Opera, whose music you hear throughout the show. Their songs are used with permission from the artist and under a Creative Commons license. If you're so inclined, check out the Patreon community. As soon as I do these interviews, I upload them to Patreon, where the content is only available to patrons. And for just a couple bucks a month, I usually post audio content, their exclusive audio content, probably 8 times a month, if not more. And as these new episodes are released, as soon as they're done, they're available to patrons. So sometimes that might be 2 weeks before an episode is released, or even longer. Usually it's a few days. Anyway, if you want to support the show, that's a great way to do it. So thanks again for investing your time. It's a big deal to me. Thank you for supporting me and supporting the show. I hope you keep coming back. Be nice.
That's our story. I hope you enjoyed the punk rock opera. We have one last piece of music for you. It goes like this.
Okay, go. take, you wanna break everything that you can't stand. You cannot break us, you cannot make us, we are the Jedi Command. We're just the losers that lived up the street, living on these chords, simple beats. You wanna cheat, you wanna stop, you wanna tear us down. We are the bad plans, man, we got our roots stuck in the ground.
Musical generation, self-made bands. We cut our teeth with bloody hands. The rage has instilled in us. Can feed a crowd, give them a rush. Thank you. Good night.